Thanks for staying with us. On this segment, we have the former federal lawmaker, author, playwright, and human rights activist, Senator Shehu Sanni. He'll be speaking with us on the current state of the nation. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. When it comes to building a nation, there is an issue that's been at the forefront, the issue of trust. Many Nigerians certainly would want a better nation, but they just don't trust that government knows exactly what they're doing. You can't totally blame them because obviously we've been disappointed over the years. You know, when you try to trust government to use your taxes appropriately, try to trust government to build schools that would not dilapidate. You would like to trust government to provide water, to trust government to provide electricity, but yet we've not seen it. But today they're asking us to trust, pay taxes, do your own bit so that we can have a better nation. How do we begin to build that trust in government again?
Thank you again for having me in your program. It's a pleasure. First of all, in 1999, when Nigeria returned to democratic rule, Nigerians were full of hopes, expectations, and dreams that the new order, the new system, the new democratic spirit will usher in a new epoch of development, peace, prosperity, human development, and collective progress. But 24 years down the line, the majority of Nigerians are disappointed. Successive leadership has not been able to deliver on the promises and the pledges they made as a government. So for over 2 decades, a pattern of distrust has been created between the people and the government. And whichever government comes into place, it has to inherit that kind of thought and mentality in the hearts and minds of Nigerians. So how can we change that? The only way to change that is that government should live up to the promises and pledges they made. They should make lives better for poor people. They should improve on the economy of the country. They should secure the country. And they should do what they have to do as a leadership and as a government. When people begin to see the delivery of dividends of democracy, when people begin to see how their resources is applied to their development and how they can see government in their lives, in their homes, in their rooms, in their plate of food, then trust will be rebuilt. But it's also generally around the world today, people are, it's not just peculiar to Nigeria.
Right.
In America, people don't trust government. In Britain, people don't trust government. In many countries of the world, people don't trust government. So it's for the government to earn the trust of the people by delivering on the mandate and they're also making sure that resources impact on life of people and people can see visible and verifiable changes and progress in their lives.
Okay, Senator, this morning we had the federal government has approved 774 trucks of rice to mitigate, the famine. Because I don't want to believe it's just hunger anymore. It's famine is looking like famine right now. Who would you describe as a vulnerable Nigerian?
Did you get that, sir? Hello, sir. Did you hear my colleague? She just asked the question.
No, I can't, but I can.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
I asked earlier that, 774 trucks of food has been approved by the federal government. The president's directive is that it targets and gets to the most vulnerable Nigerians. And this term is something that has been confusing for a long time. Who would you classify as most vulnerable Nigerian, if we were to get down to definitions?
In Nigeria today, there is an evident hardships in the lives of our people as a result of the pains and consequences of the economic reforms. And that is not unusual for any government that dares to take the bull by the horn as far as changing the economic direction and philosophy of a nation is concerned. But economic reforms must also be done with human face. And I believe that it is a good idea that foodstuffs are shared to people. That will temporarily address the problems of hunger and poverty, but it's not going to permanently address it. And when you're talking of the vulnerable in your society, the vulnerable are growing in numbers as far as the reality of the situation it is today. People that could have afforded 3 square meals some few years ago today are struggling to feed even once in a day. People that would be said to be located within the prism of middle class are today beyond, have today gone back to the lower class. So if this palliative is to reach the vulnerable, I think the first thing to do is to look at those in the society, lower strata in the society, the downtrodden, those who are not employed or those whose subsistence cannot actually be called subsistence, the physically challenged in the society, the old, that is the seniors who virtually have no pension, and also the workers whom wages cannot actually afford them a decent life. These are the strata of people that need to be reached out to. And the way to go about it is that I believe should be that every state should set up a committee that constitutes representatives from the government, the civil society, the workers, the youths, communities-based association. Should have representatives so that whatever is sent can reach out to the people on the ground. Because if you leave it specifically for governors or for politicians, certainly it is simply going to go to their supporters and their hangers on. So every state should have a standing committee that has representatives from all sectors of the society, both those in government and those out of government, the workers, the physically challenged, young people. It would go a long way to reach out to the vulnerable in society.
Okay.
So I'll just stay within the line of Nima's question, in that some are of the opinion that Nigerians don't need food palliative, that we need jobs, we need productivity, we need, you can't give food forever. So there is a need for us to be able to create an enabling environment. And since we cannot feed majority of Nigerians, according to the report, it's 774, which means that 1 truck to a local government, and we know how big local governments can be. Do you believe that this food distribution is a way to, does it really solve the problem? Or how do you think we should we scrap food? And where would you like the government to focus the attention on concerning making food more affordable for Nigerians?
Well, the only way to address the problems of hunger in the country is to invest in agriculture. Nigeria is a country with over 900,000 square kilometers. We have over 200 rivers, and 80% of our land is arable. I cannot imagine a nation of ours still thinking of importing food. God has done everything to Nigeria. He has given us what he has not given Palestine. He has not given Israel. He has not given Saudi Arabia. He has not even given the Vatican. But unfortunately, for all these blessings that we have, we're still expecting manna from heaven. Kogi State is one of the states that are usually used. This is a state where you have confluence of River Niger and River Benue coming together. But the city doesn't have a pipe-borne water. Wow. So we have reached a point where we are expecting perhaps angels to come down and feed us. So importing food and distributing food can only address the temporary problem of hunger and not the permanent one. Government must revolutionize agriculture. We must invest in agriculture. In fact, if there is any ministry that should be headed by the president, it should be Ministry of Agriculture, not Ministry of Petroleum Resources. That's where our future is. It's sad that a nation like ours, we are still importing cotton from Egypt when we can grow cotton here. We're importing sugar from France when we can grow sugarcane here. We're importing wheat from Ukraine when we can grow wheat in Nigeria. We're importing rice from Vietnam and Thailand when we can grow rice in Nigeria. So we have everything that a nation will have desire for God to send to us. We don't have natural disaster. We don't have monsoon. We don't have hurricane. We don't have earthquake. We don't have any. We have land that you can plant anything for it to grow. The problem is we refuse to invest in agriculture. And that is the long-term survey. What of these 20 trucks that have been shared? Now the question is that, how do you share 20 trucks to Kano State with a population of 15 million people, and Lagos State with a population of about 20 million people? The same thing with that of, say, states like that have smaller number, so that I don't mention states and they feel demeaned. But I think the best way to go about it is that, like they said, it should be temporary, but there should be a formal investment in agriculture so that we don't only grow food crops and livestock, but we should also be able to export. And it's a good idea that I support the establishment of Ministry of Livestock, because livestock is a whole economy of itself.
Yeah.
And one of the problems we are facing as a country for the last 5 to 10 years has been the fact that livestock has become a source of conflicts, acrimony, violence, and bloodshedding in both the north and southern part of Nigeria. Having a ministry like that is also an investment in agriculture. So we should invest in agriculture to address the problem of hunger.
Let me get a few more questions in for you.
This food will now be eaten. After we have eaten all the rice, what becomes of it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the hardship in Nigeria is really eating us deep, honestly. And I want to ask, since he assumed office, since the president assumed the office, the policies, how many of his policies have been right? And all his policies, do you think that they are directed at making the economy better? Because so far, it has just been taking us deep into poverty or into the hardship. So what do you think about the policies? Do you think they are good policies? Are we going to get something out of it at the end of the day?
Well, any person who tells you that Nigerians are not suffering today in this country, I think he is living in another planet.
Thank you.
But we should also take cognizance of the state of the country when the current president took over power. For 8 years, there has not been any significant investment in agriculture and any serious attempt to address the problems of the economy of the country. How can we say now, if you look at it generally, Nigerians were more patient with Buhari than they are with Jonathan. Many people today who are speaking out against impatience were silent for 8 years. They were silent when money is stolen in central bank. They were silent when the whole economy was wrecked. They were silent when a cabal has taken over and were destroying the nation. Now, the president today has a responsibility and duty to get things right. And he chose to do it a different way. If he's going to have done it the same way, is to keep subsidy and also to keep funding the Naira so that people will be living the life they are living for decades. But now he has taken a different path, and this path comes with the consequences of people have to pay the price of it. But you see, the missing link is that any nation that has set for itself targets to achieve through economic reforms, then we must see sacrifice at all levels. The lawmakers, the people occupying position of authority and power are making sacrifices. People in government, people at the upper level are making sacrifices. Then the people at the lower level will say, okay, now we are all in this boat and let's all make sacrifice. But where you have that it is only the poor that are making sacrifices, that are suffering, and that are urged and called on to make sacrifices, and those at the upper echelon of society are not making sacrifices, then there are bound to be disenchantment and discontent. So I believe that he inherited a wrecked economy, he inherited a looted country, he inherited a nation that virtually was not set to move forward. And the way he took over, as if all these bombs have all been planted. So to me, I think what is most important is that in as much as the government wants to reset and reconfigure the economy and political spectrum of this country, it also has to take care and take care of the vulnerable in the society. Right. Because if there is hunger, if there is suffering in the society, it's very easy for people to develop a mindset and come out on the street and protest. But if those strata have been addressed, then they will give you time for you to go and do other things that will reset the country. Okay. What are the where did he succeed and where are we failing? There are successes that are recorded in terms of infrastructure. You can see that the Federal Minister of Works, he has been up and down. The roads now are receiving attention. Even within the FCT, you can see what Wiki has been doing in that infrastructure. In terms of security, yes, there are kidnappings, yes, there are killings in the north. The insecurity has persisted, but it's not as worse as it used to be under Buhari. Just some few days ago, journalists were arrested in Kaduna. It never took 3 to 4 days. They were released. It happened in Zamfara. It also happened in Katsina and Sokoto State. So this a pastor was kidnapped in Zamfara. He was released. If you remember what happened under Buhari, in Federal Government Grace College, Kebbi State, student girls were kidnapped. They have to be 2 years in captivity of these bandits and terrorists. So we can see some level of improvement as far as security is concerned.
All right.
There are evident infrastructural development we can see. But you can't see all those things here when people are finding it difficult to feed themselves. A hungry man cannot see, he cannot hear, he cannot listen. So when you address the problem of poverty, address the problem of hunger, and their eyes and nose, and mouth and ears will open to see all these things that
Let me get a few more questions.
They can't even compare when they can feed. So I think the president should go about now addressing the problems of poverty in as much as reforms are also taking place. And I support the reforms because I believe that it will reset this country to a different direction.
Okay.
Because what has happened from 2015 to 2023 was simply a disaster, and he needs time to be able to.
All right, let me get a few more questions for you.
Let's bring it to the people now, because you mentioned food security and lack of food as one of the causes of this hardship we're going through right now. An average Nigerian youth does not find dignity in farming, and we did not grow the strength in the past. Our strength in agriculture and farming by having mechanized farming was the hard work of the people tilling the soil. How do we get our youth to change this mindset, to shift back to doing the work, and tilling the soil to get food?
Well, you see, farming or agriculture is not simply a federal government affair. I believe that now that the Supreme Court has given the local governments the opportunity to control their own resources and use it directly in impacting on development at the grassroots level, it's also a step towards addressing the problems of poverty and hunger. Because if you look at the investment that has been done in agriculture, for example, under the last government, over 3 trillion, as it was reportedly stated, was invested in Anchor Borrowers Program.
Yes.
Apart from fake pyramids of rice we have seen along the airport road that lasted within 48 hours, and then it simply disappeared. That is what became of it. Where are all the trillions that were all pumped into agriculture? If you just go outskirts of Kaduna here, you will see farmers planting their crops with their feet as if it is 1820 or 1895. So for all the funds that have been going into agriculture, has not reached directly to the poor people. I've seen some governors like that of Kaduna State and Niger State, have all reached out, buying tractors, reaching out to poor people who will now produce more. I think that is the future of Nigeria, where the local farmer in the village can have access to resources, to fertilizer, to modern agricultural equipment. That is where agriculture is. Not bringing big-time farmers who are holding meetings in Hilton and other five-star hotel and calling themselves farmers. This is not how you go about agriculture. Agricultural ministry should be one of the most important ministry as far as a nation of 220 million people are concerned. That is where the future is. Sharing rice. We will eat the rice and then go to the toilet and then we'll still be hungry again. So what will come will be another 20 trailers be shared every time. That will not solve the problem. The problem is investing in agriculture and not the type of uncle borrowers fraud which we have had in the last 8 years.
Senator, let me throw in two questions because of time. We're running out of time. In your state, Kaduna State, the House of Assembly is investigating the former governor, El-Rufai. What are your thoughts on that? 400 billion naira, they said, alleged mismanagement. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And secondly, the president is meeting with Labour on Thursday to agree on a minimum wage. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the president should approve the 250,000 Labour is asking for?
Well, your first question about the investigation in Kaduna State. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria or northern Nigeria where a state house of assembly under the leadership of a governor of a state, Sanni, has thoroughly investigated finances of the account for 8 years and have come out with facts and figures. Whatever I may say about that investigation, people will say that I have natural political difference with El-Rufai, but I'm going to take you to two figures. How can you collect over 11.8 billion naira from a state treasury? For 6 years, you say you are going to construct a light rail in Kaduna. The money has been removed and there is no light rail. How can a government pay a travel agency getting to about 2 billion naira in the name of whatever it is? How can a governor of a state, some 2 to 3 days before he leaves office, now pull out over 20 billion from a commercial bank and tie our IGR to the payment of that loan? Go through the report and see how truth was described in fact and figures. I mean, we need to recover our money that was looted. I, in the Senate, oppose this loan of 350 million because I know it's going to be looted. And I have been vindicated with what I have seen in the ground. So Kaduna State is like a state that a woman that has been raped and the rapist wants honor. So going about and disparaging this work of the State Assembly and attacking the governor is not the case. The issue is that answer the charges and the allegations in facts and figures. That's one area we have to do. Secondly, the meeting between the president and Labour is the best step to do. Now, Nigeria workers need a living wage, which they can move and live with their families, and a middle ground should be reached. Labour wants 200,000, and government can offer 62,000. There should be a compromise. The president was a protester. He's a Democrat. He's one that came from the trenches, and he's also one that has dealt with Labour for a long time. This is a democracy. We should solve things through dialogue, and it's very important. I will still add, there is an atmosphere that we're going to have an August visitor of a protest in August. This is a democracy. People have the right to express their opinion. The president is the number one protester in the country. I'm a protester. Even Sanni, the governor of Kaduna State, and many of these, we are all protesters. And we held protests in the past. There is nothing wrong with that. But the protest we need is the one that will be peaceful, that will be constructive, one that will emphasize on demands of the people and for government, not the one of the kind of Sudan. Protests that will lead to the breakdown of an order, attacking of shops, like in Kaduna State. Our own fear is that it may lead to the break of ethno-religious violence between Muslim and Christians. That is not needed, but Nigerians have the right to express their opinion peacefully. Protest, register their objection.
Right.
Senator, let me just throw in this question, because a few minutes ago you were complimenting the work that the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike was doing in Abuja, and he just criticized your performance as a senator, that talk is cheap when you are not in government. What do you make of this?
Well, people have taken Enso Wike out of context. He never made direct reference to me. What he actually said is that it's not every time that we should be criticizing government. That, like in our own case, the issue is that what have we as senators been able to do? He wasn't specific on me. I know he was specific on Ezekomi, but whether he was specific on me or he's not, the issue is that he's working in FCT and he has changed the landscape.
Yeah.
And he's impacting on the lives of people. Whether he's critical of me or not, I will say it. But I'm looking towards another time when we're going to meet in any of the public fora, so I can respond to him. But the fact is that he's achiever, and he's not been personal.
Mario, let me just throw this in.
I have to throw it one. I want to throw one in.
Me too, I want to throw.
So we all have 3 things. So I'll let Ramatu go first. So we have to wrap up with you because we have another guest coming in. But I'm going to take 3 questions for you. Hopefully you can note it down before we go. Ramatu, go ahead.
Okay, sir. So I disagree with the fact that every time we always use this excuse that the last president didn't do well, he didn't do this and that. So when you bring in the new one gives an excuse that, yes, that the last one messed up the country, this, that. So I'm trying to say that the new one that came, is it that he didn't know that he knew this was the situation of the country. And he came in and I can't see, he removed subsidy, and I can't see any of the policies around the subsidy that he removed, if anyone is really working, because at the end of the day, he came in and things have just been going, the hardship is just so much.
He had alluded to the fact that we are hungry. Hungry people cannot see opportunity.
Exactly. So I think he has addressed some of that question, but I think we will also highlight it. Talk about your question.
I wanted to highlight the fact that, Senator Shehu is a gbas person on Twitter, but in recent times, he seemed to be very sympathetic towards this administration. He even appeared at the Democracy Day dinner in Aso Villa. It's like he's a friend of APC. Sir, what do you say concerning the association of your close proximity? Are you going back to APC?
And my own question, I hope you can remember all this question. My own final question for you is, we're hearing that Dr. Betta Edu is coming back, or she's doing what she can to get back. Do you think she should be reappointed, as many believe she should, others believe she shouldn't? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I will answer the first question. Well, it has always been my own style. When things are good, I will commend it, and when things are bad, I commend it. Even during Buhari regime, it's not all about criticisms. There are still aspects of the government that will say this is good and that is bad. So if this one is also in office, I have the right to say that this is good and also this is bad. And any person who is expecting me to always say everything is bad, I think he is not being in a credible opposition. When things, for example now, the East-West Road, it has a lot of economic significance. The road from Lagos to Sokoto has a lot to deliver. So will I say it's bad because it does not pass through Kaduna State? That is the question we need to ask. So when things are not good, I will say they are not. And that is what. Okay. Like the sharing of food now, 50 trucks, I say that is not the way to go about it. We need to invest in agriculture. Okay. So I not just being an activist, I'm also a politician. Yeah. So my own idea, the issue of saying I'm going back to the APC or not, the issue is that I was ejected from the APC because of the political situation in Kaduna State. There is no way I could have remained in APC when that governor was the governor of the state. But it is not the case as it is now. So as far as I'm concerned, it will depend. If I'm going to be relevant in politics, if I'm going to contest election, as a person with constituents, you have to reach out, you have to talk to your people, and they give you best advice. This is what you need to do. Okay. So that is what I'm saying. Okay. So it's not like being sympathetic. I was also sympathetic to Buhari on a number of issues.
We have to wrap up,
just like I'm to this. But the issue is that we just share different history with Buhari. And for one, we came from the same trenches. So I have a duty. We are not protesting to overthrow the government. We are protesting on policies of the government, and people have the right to say policies and programs are wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. I'll talk about the Dr. Betta Edu. Do you think she should be reappointed? I hear that there are moves for bringing her back.
Well, I don't know anything much about them. If they want to reappoint her and they want to reappoint her, it is all their decision to take. But I cannot say that this, as long as our issue is concerned, I don't know much about it. But it's left for the government to appoint or not to appoint her.
All right. That's all we can take. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us. Senator, we're speaking with our guest, Senator Shehu Sanni, who has been very insightful in his comments. Thank you so much, sir.